Okay, we move on to our next section in ecology, one that's a pretty cool section, I think, and that's the endangered species section. Some really cool projects and some stuff I think that will open your eyes regarding endangered species throughout the world. So, to kick it off, we're going to show you a little video here, and I want you to type the top 10 endangered species as of 2013 and their estimated population. So, the video is going to show you 10 different endangered species, and I want you to just type the name of the animal or organism and the estimated population remaining on Earth. Here we go. Okay, so probably some animals in there that you may have recognized, some of them that may have surprised you. I bet you didn't know that the great white shark is an endangered species or that tiger you saw, but they are. So, endangered species, here we go. With endangered species, there's always what are called earth alarms. In other words, the earth is trying to give us a warning or let us know about problems on earth. So it may be the climate, but it's also animals and plants that naturally give us earth alarms. It's basically warnings that tell us about problems here on earth. And as humans, we can basically respond to the alarms two ways. If we respond and we take care of these things, most of the time conditions improve and the animals end up being saved. On the other side, if we do not answer the alarms and we continue to ignore them, conditions worsen and eventually the animals or the plants or the insects will die off. So animals and plants always give us warnings. We call them earth alarms. And if we respond to these alarms, things get better. And if not, the conditions worsen and those animals will probably die. The first earth alarm is what's called a threatened species, such as these elephant that you're seeing in the video here. These are threatened, an example of a threatened species. It's the first alarm. This is when the animals start to decline in population and scientists start to wonder what's going on and they start to research it. Usually this happens when the animal still has quite a few members of the population left, but it's the first alarm that is given to scientists to kind of give them a heads up that says, hey man, something's wrong here. So it's a species that's likely to become endangered if it's not protected by humans. So these elephants, for example, are poached for their tusks. Now poaching means it's illegal hunting. In other words, these animals will be killed for the tusks. These are the horns that are on the face of the elephant. In many countries, they are extremely valuable on what's called the black market or illegal market for different medicines and other things that they use the tusks for. But humans are hunting these illegally, and they're killing them, and they're only taking the tusks. So they're wasting the entire animal and only taking the tusk for trading on the black market. So A threatened species example would be the African elephant, which is poached for its tusks. The next level of endangerment is what's called the endangered species. And this is the second alarm. And the example you're seeing here is the sea turtle. If you've seen our turtle in class, Frank, he is actually related to this sea turtle. Kind of far apart because the sea turtle lives in the ocean and Frank obviously lives in the tank or naturally in a pond or a lake or maybe a river. But this sea turtle is an endangered species. And by endangered, this is basically a species that's in immediate danger of becoming extinct. In other words, gone forever. This animal will never come back and needs human protection in order to survive. This sea turtle is highly sought after in foreign countries because people like to eat the meat and they like to eat the eggs. And whenever you eat the eggs, obviously those babies cannot hatch and cannot be adults and cannot produce more babies. So a lot of people are eating the meat and the eggs, and these turtles are becoming endangered and very close to extinction. And we're trying to protect them, but in some countries people don't realize how endangered this animal is, and it's becoming a problem. But the endangered species is kind of the second alarm that happens in the endangered species chain here. And the final one is what's called the extinct species. And this is the final alarm. And this is when the species of plant or animal or insect is no longer living on Earth, meaning the population is zero. An example of an animal that's not quite yet extinct but is very close is the black rhino here. In some parts or in some countries there are literally only 10 or less black rhinos still remaining. And much like those elephants, they are poached for the horn. As you can see on top of the rhino's head is a horn here. And hunters will illegal hunt this animal and kill it and take the horn. It's not extinct yet, but it's very close. This battle between law authorities and illegal poachers is one that's a very hot topic with species, especially this species of the black rhino throughout the world. So an example of an animal that's very close to being extinct or no longer here on Earth is the black rhino. And what's crazy is it's not just animals. A lot of times people think of endangered species and they only think of animals, but it actually includes plants and insects as well. An example of a plant that's very close to extinction is the pitcher plant. Pretty cool plant. In the video on top here, this plant actually, if you watch, is going to eat this slug. That's right. This plant actually eats insects alive. You'll see the slug get ready to fall into the plant here shortly. But this plant is pretty cool, but it's becoming endangered mostly because of climate change. Throughout the world, scientists believe that pitcher plants are slowly becoming endangered. On the bottom here, we have an insect. The Kino checker spot butterfly is also becoming endangered. This butterfly, again, they believe with climate change and the earth becoming hotter. Watch the slug up top. He's getting ready to fall in anytime. Check it out. It's going to be really cool. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Fall. Fall, slug. Fall. He'll fall eventually. Just watch it. But both of these organisms are endangered right now. Their numbers are dropping worldwide because scientists believe climate change, in some cases deforestation in some of these areas that we talked about in our last unit. Yep, here goes a slug. Kind of looks like, yeah, he's gone. So the plant will actually close up and eat that insect, but that plant is pretty cool because it eats insects, but it is becoming endangered worldwide. So the pitcher plant and the Kino checker spot butterfly are two examples of organisms that are not animals but are becoming extinct, or not extinct, endangered here on Earth.
Climate change could lead to a habitat decline for half of common plant species and a third of animals. Should temperatures rise more than 2 degrees Celsius, biodiversity around the globe will be seriously affected, according to a paper published in Nature Climate Change. The scientists who published the findings say that if serious efforts are undertaken to curb greenhouse gases, the impact can be lessened. By studying the current habits of 50,000 plant and animal species, the team assessed the flora and fauna's required environmental needs. They then cross-referenced that data with their outlook of what the world's regional environs will be like in 2100. Their models showed 34% of animal species and 57% of plants suffering significant habitat losses. This result will, in turn, impact humans as the potentially affected species contribute to air and water purification, flood control, and nutrient cycling. The researchers assert that these losses can be cut by 60% if global emissions are curbed and peak in 2016, and rising temperatures are maintained to 2 degrees Celsius. In addition to global warming, the main factors leading to habitat loss in the U.S. are agriculture, land and water development, and pollution.
Okay, so as you can see from that video, the causes of animal and species endangerment basically is humans. We're the ones causing the problems. Most of the time when these animals' populations drop, the cause is that humans are doing it. Some of the examples are habitat loss. We talked about in the last section about how we're destroying the forests through deforestation for timber, to use the woods for building materials and other things. But habitat loss is a monster cause of animal endangerment worldwide. Another one is air and water pollution. Every time we pollute the air and water, it becomes a situation where it's very difficult for animals to survive. A lot of these animals and species live in the air and they live in the water. And whenever we pollute the air and the water, it makes it difficult for them to survive. Illegal killing or collection. We talked about the poaching earlier. That's illegal killing when an animal is killed for a body part or maybe for the meat, and it's illegal. Another thing people do is they collect these animals and use them as pets. For example, you saw the tiger. I know it sounds crazy, but there are actually a lot of tigers here in the United States that people will illegally import to the country, and they'll keep them as pets. And that collection is another cause of why these animals are becoming endangered. Competition with other species is not necessarily caused by humans, but it actually is, because whenever we go into an area and build buildings or streets or cities or just houses, we take away the homes of these animals. Whenever we take away the homes of these animals, they're forced to go into different parts of the wild, and sometimes that causes them to collide with other species, so they begin to compete over not only the land but also the food and water resources in that area, and therefore animals start to become less in population because they have to compete for food and water with other animals because humans have taken over their environments. Another one is disease. Again, this is human caused. A lot of times this comes from the air and water pollution that we do here worldwide, and in the United States especially. We dump a lot of our waste into the air and the water, and that causes animals to have diseases. And finally, what's called predation, and that's when one species of animal takes over and basically eats all the other animals. And you've probably heard of the predator-prey relationship. This happens with animals too, where one species becomes dominant because another species has been killed off due to some type of human action, and there becomes predation, and the animals basically wipe each other out. Here's the thing. If you kill one animal, one insect, or one plant off, one means many. In other words, all living things are connected and depend on each other for survival. Everything, including us. You've probably heard of food webs. All animals depend on each other, whether directly or indirectly, in order for them to survive. So if you kill one animal or an insect or a plant, you're actually probably affecting 20 to 30 other animals, insects, or plants that depend on that animal. It has been estimated that when a single plant goes extinct, it can actually take with it up to 30 other species. And the reason why plants are so important is because plants actually feed a lot of animals, including us. So if we wipe out a plant, maybe we pollute water or we pollute the air, and a certain plant, such as that pitcher plant we saw earlier eating that slug, if we kill that one plant, it can take up to 30 species with it. So if you were to kill like 5 plants, you're taking like 150 other species with that plant that it probably provides food directly or indirectly for. So one means many. Everything's connected, and if you take away one animal, you're affecting a whole ecosystem, especially if it's a plant. So what can you do? There are a lot of things you can do, and we'll focus on a few of these things here over the next month or two. But things you could do. First of all, conserve animal habitats. You can do this at home, back in your backyard. Make sure that area is clean. Doesn't have a lot of trash. You don't pollute it by putting things into your sink or maybe into the gutters, or flushing things down the toilet that may affect the animals, because all that stuff runs into the local rivers and streams. Make space for wildlife. A lot of you probably heard of national parks. There's actually a video here. This is Yosemite National Park, which is located out in the western part of the United States. And the United States government has set this aside to make space for not only the animals there, but the plants and the insects there as well. So one thing we've done is to make space for the wildlife. One of the easiest things you can do: recycle, reduce, and reuse. Recycle your paper, recycle your cans, your bottles, reduce what you use, and simply reuse stuff instead of using, for example, I know one thing my family's bad at is we use a lot of paper plates and silverware that we throw away, the plastic stuff. And it'll be better for us just to actually do the dishes. Now, obviously, we do the dishes, but sometimes it's easier to use those paper plates and those plastic spoons and forks. But in reality, if we would just do the dishes, it'd be much better. So reuse things. Join an organization. We'll be talking about some of the organizations for endangered species here over the next month or so. You're actually going to start your own organization for an endangered animal or species of your choice. But one thing you can do, and there are literally like 100 different organizations you can join and really make a difference in the world for these animals. And finally, make your voice be heard. Like I said, one of the things we will do in this class is we want you to make your voice be heard, especially about one animal in particular. You're going to pick an animal here pretty soon, and you're going to use your basically your movie making skills to develop a pitch to help get the word out about your organism. So conserve animal habitats, make some space for those wildlife, recycle, reduce, reuse, join an organization, and make your voice be heard. Okay, you're powerful with your voice.